Alrighty dighty algebra class. Today, not going to sugarcoat it, we've got quite the doozy. But as long as you don't end up like this guy with unicorns conquering him, then you'll be okay. Alright, so 12.3, we are completing the square. Today, now, this first example, this first about half page is just visual. You don't need to do it this way. I know how much you guys don't like these geometric algebra tiles, but so these are all A's. Sorry, my A's kind of look like 9s, but that's an A. So we're creating a representation of A squared plus 6A. A times A is A squared. 1 times A is A. Now what we do, because we're completing the square, so we're going to arrange these tiles in the form of a square. So if I take these three and kind of put them underneath this guy, I get that. But I need to complete the square. So I've got A, 1, 2, 3, A, 1, 2, 3. So I've got 3 times 3 is going to be 9. Boom. So I completed the square by adding 9 here. 9 little boxes. You'll probably need to stop and pause the video. So come back now when you get back to it. So to complete the square's shape, we must add a number, just a number, no variables, no nothing, to the expression to produce a perfect square trinomial. So the perfect square of A squared plus 6A is A squared plus 6A plus 9. This is the business that we added here. So by completing the square, I've taken A squared plus 6A and I've added 9 to it. Now, that probably sounded like a whole bunch of gibberish, but we're going to see when we factor that it's actually really nice. And there's actually there's a really, really, really good reason why we do this. And it's a lot easier when we're doing it mathematically. You'll see how we do it. Let's say we've got x squared plus bx. To complete the square, add the square of half b to the expression. So to complete this expression, we're going to add b over 2, that's half b, and then square it. So we did that up here. Our b term here is 6, b over 2 is 3, 3 squared is 9. So we added 9 to complete this square. Here's another example. Let's say we've got, hey, get out of here. So whenever you see something where it's an x squared plus or minus a variable, it doesn't matter, you can take the coefficient of that guy over here. Negative 16 divided by 2 is negative 8. Negative 8 squared is 64. So we're going to add 64 to this expression, and now we've completed the square. And because we know our special patterns, we know that this is factored to be x minus 8 squared. So the whole reason for completing the square is so we can factor easy. Again, I mentioned memorizing those special patterns. I think that was chapter 9, maybe 9.4. If you want to go back and rehash and make sure that you have it memorized, wink, 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 then you're going to have to do that. By the way, I don't know if that winking actually worked out on the video, so maybe I should just take her and go like wink, wink. Yeah, that's a little bit cuter. Okay. Another example. We're going to complete the square for this bad boy. So my b, my coefficient here, is 3.5. I'm going to take that, I'm going to multiply by half, right? Because it's 3.5 divided by 2. So if you divide by 2, you're multiplying by the reciprocal, right? That's 3/10. I'm going to square that. That's going to be 9/100. So I've included 9/100 to this expression. And what I can do is, because I'm adding it, now I could just factor this to x plus 3/10, because I'm adding it here. X plus 3/10 squared. Boom, that's my factor. Now, if you recognize that this factor is this guy here, rather this guy, then you might be saving yourself a little bit of heartache. This is how we factor. This is just a key way to help us out when we do that. I've got a couple more examples right here. Okay, if you want to try it out, go ahead. You can pause the video now just to try these two. But I'm just going to show you. I've divided 18 by 2. That's 9. 9 squared is 81. Because I'm adding it, I know it's going to be x plus 9 squared. This is my factor. That's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to factor, guys. Again, here, b squared, or b divided by 2 is 10. 10 squared is 100. The factor, because it's minus, it's going to be subtracting it. X minus 10 squared. These are my factors. With our factors, again, we're setting it equal to 0. And that's where it's going to cross the x-axis. So here's just a couple reminders in case you didn't go back to chapter 9 to check those notes. Here's the pattern for these perfect square trinomials. I'll let you pause it. All right. Now, sometimes we could set this equal to 0. That's going to be where our parabola crosses the x-axis. But sometimes we need to do a little bit of math magic in order to get there. So we've got this example here. X squared plus 8x equals 9. Now, if I subtract 9, that's not going to be my completed square. But this term here, rather this side of the equation, is already in the complete square format. It's my x squared plus an x term. So what I can do is I could take my b divided by 2, so 8/2 squared, that's going to equal 16. 16. And I could add 16 to both sides of the equation. When I do that over here, I could take my factor, and then I could add this here. That's 25. X plus 4 squared, 25. Now I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Moving along real fast. Hope you guys have questions. Please ask. But again, all I did was I added these together. I've got my factors. That's x plus 4 squared equals 25. And then I did what I'm showing here and taking the square root of both sides. Okay. The square root of this is just going to be x plus 4. The square root of this is plus or minus 5. Now, I'm going to set up my two equations where I've got negative 5 and positive 5. I'm going to solve for x again. Subtracting 4 from both sides. So x equals negative 9 or 1. Okay. Whole lot of process. But I've got some steps here for perfect square factoring. Now, the thing we're going to do is we're going to rewrite in proper form. That is x squared plus bx equals n. N is just any old number. Once we do that, we're going to add b squared, or b divided by 2 squared to both sides. That's where I added 16 to both sides, remember? Factor the left and simplify the right. Reverse the square by taking the square root. Remember that a square root of anything equals plus or minus. And we're going to solve the equations. All right, guys. There is a quiz. The quiz is for sections 3 and 4, but section 12.4 is just more completing the square. So we don't need both of them. We're just going to go for the quiz. That way you guys have less homework numbers. Yes, it is better for you guys because it's less homework. I'll be back a little bit later with video on the quiz. Please, any questions, comments, concerns, either comment below, shoot me an email. I'd love to hear from you guys. And besides that, fare thee well.